I wouldn't doubt that.
Hello everyone, I'm Debbie here, and welcome to the next edition of the 3000 He Knows. Today I'm here with Joey, and I'm here with Jesse. And tonight is going to be a little bit of a different episode because today I've been under the weather since Monday, and today was one of the worst days of my cold, but I was able to pull through, and my sweat broke, so I'm feeling better and all that. Um, but that's why I'm going to take a little bit of a break tonight. I may pop in here and there throughout the stream, but I'm mostly going to be backstage letting Joey do most of the topics that I listed out here for him and Jesse to talk about. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode here, and take it away.
Okay, we have our first topic here, Jesse, and it's going to be Ravens versus Steelers and the fallout of that. So, in 2008, John Harbaugh was hired by the Ravens after 9 seasons of Brian Billick being their head coach. He won them a Super Bowl. That was about it. He got them close to the Super Bowl one other time. Unfortunately, it ended on a drop 2 point conversion against the Bills. But based off what happened during that game, where it was 10-3 at the half and everything else, and the quick touchdown at the end there with less than a minute left with Aaron Rodgers, and then it coming down pretty much to they had 2 timeouts left in about 30 seconds, and they didn't get enough yardage for Tyler Loop, who would eventually end up missing the kick, which unfortunately leads to the firing of John Harbaugh after 18 seasons. And the fallout is this: you have a guy after 18 seasons with Super Bowl wins, and unfortunately, I did the math since 2012 when he went to the Super Bowl and won. He's only 4-7 in the playoffs, and he's not reached the Super Bowl since. But I would not pin it on John Harbaugh right now, all things considered, because there was the stories that went out and everything else where he took away like the ping pong table, the video games, and everything else. Uh, what would you? How do you feel about that when you have your head coach take away all these distractions and then still get fired because of a missed kick?
I just think that they needed a coach change. I mean, when you have a coach that has been there for years and only has gone to one Super Bowl, it's time because Tom Landry was with the Cowboys for many years, many decades. If you think about it, and in that time he had two Super Bowls. He's lost in the Super Bowl as well. But when the when the franchise starts to take a dip, it's time for a fresh perspective. I mean, look at what happened with the Spurs. We went 20 years. Oh, we had a 22 or 21 playoff streak, and once Kawhi left and the whole franchise just died with it, and we had those couple of years where we were in rebuild mode, but Pop had to step down due to a stroke.
And that's just it. You hit the nail right on the head where he had 192 wins in those 18 years. He only had the one Super Bowl ring, but now for Baltimore specifically, because I was talking about it with you and David before, that game, whether or not Baltimore wins, I think Harbaugh is on a short leash at that point because between him and Mike Tomlin, who are the two longest tenured coaches, and with Harbaugh's firing, he's no longer the longest tenured coach. He's actually been coaching since he was 22. He's in his early 60s. So he's been coaching since 1984 when he was under his dad, Jack, in college. But I think the fact that all these coaches have gotten fired, Jonathan Gannon, and the most surprising in my mind was Kevin Stefanski, but this wasn't initially his fault because Cleveland, I know I'm staring away from the Ravens and the Steelers, but Cleveland is going to be in another rebuild in that same division with Baltimore, who needs a new head coach now, and the Steelers, who've dealt with Mike Tomlin now for the last 18 seasons. Do you feel like who's going to be having a harder time now? Is it going to be Baltimore or the Browns with their quarterback situation? Because I know they've been swapping off between Dylan Gabriel. They had Joe Flacco at one point, but what do you think their situation is?
Oh man. Well, Joe Flacco was good for as long as those years, but he got injuries and old age took time is undefeated, you know. And Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback. He just doesn't have the team around him. And each year, teams build and if you're not trying to evolve and just stick with the same system and the same players, you're not gonna look what happened with the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s. They kept the same core players, for many years. They didn't add any more players around Aikman and Urban a year prior went down. All the key components of that Super Bowl team just started, retiring, and the only one that was left was Emmitt Smith. So teams need to evolve. They need to start, putting pieces to who could they counteract, because because teams watch films. The good teams watch films and they know your routine already. Just like the Astros. The Astros were good for so long, and they recently injuries had a big role in their demise in the offseason. They collapsed, but everybody needs to evolve. It's like playing chess. You gotta add the right pieces to a team.
And I like the way you went with that because, especially in chess, you got to protect your king, your queen, and your bishop because the pawns normally get picked off first. But if you protect your pawns, your big pieces get picked off first. That's generally not the smartest strategy. Yeah, I agree as well with that statement there, Mr. Sama. But the problem going forward now with Baltimore, and I think it's going to be the same exact thing with Pittsburgh, because Cleveland, they still have a long way to go. They don't have that solid running back anymore. They don't have Nick Chubb anymore.
Yeah,
He's down in Houston. And at quarterback, they went through 4 quarterbacks in one season at one point. So now they're just floundering almost. Yes, Myles Garrett broke the sack record with them, but that's the problem is their defense has been so inconsistent. They have Myles Garrett. They have Denzel Ward. But when you talk about that defense, those are the only 2 names that come up. It's almost the same exact thing with Baltimore now because they need a running back who's going to come in there, and Keaton Mitchell is not it at running back because he's not the guy who's going to take over for a Derrick Henry, who's now in the twilight of his career, and he's not in the playoffs now either. So you've got Lamar Jackson with this contract. You've got guys who are there, like Isaiah Likely, who's a great tight end. You've got pieces, but how are you supposed to build around a team that's pretty much got a no-name defense? I mean that in the nicest manner, but you don't have pieces there anymore. And it's going to be the same thing with Cleveland and Pittsburgh when Aaron Rodgers does finally retire. Who do they have? Okay. So we're going to move on to the next one. It's Wild Card Weekend coming up. With the Steelers winning, the Steelers will play in the wild card round. So let me see now. So the Steelers are in. Patriots have the best record. They get a bye. The Bills are in. The Jags are in. The Broncos are in. So the Broncos get a bye this, which is rather impressive considering they have the same record as the Patriots. But I think they beat the Patriots. So playoff seeding for the NFL. Let me double check here. Playoff bracket is going to look like this. So you got Detroit. Detroit's not playing this weekend, but a big matchup between the Bills and the Jags on Sunday at 10 a.m. That is a big one coming out. They face it's the Bills and the Jaguars. Jesse?
Yeah.
Who do you have coming out of that matchup? You got Trevor Lawrence looking for a playoff victory. You got Josh Allen, who has to go through, yet again, another team that is better than him to try and make a Super Bowl, which they have not reached in his career.
I think the Bills are going to beat the Jags. The Bills should be able to. Well, I mean, the Jaguars surprised me this season the way they were playing. Because usually the cons aren't really that great at building it at anything, at building anything. I mean, AEW, but that's just, wrestling.
Well, the best things money can buy, But I have to agree with you. I do have Buffalo possibly making it past to the next round. I like Trevor Lawrence quarterback, but I think he's won one playoff game in his career. I'm not sure, but he doesn't have he has ETN. And I like Travis Etienne as a running back, but that defense is just not good. So he's 1-1. He lost the divisional game in 2023, and he won one when they were down 27-0 to the Chargers in the playoffs before. So he's 500. He's only looking for his second win, but Liam Cohen has actually done a lot to help this team to get to where they are. So credit to him. And the next one is going to be another big game. A rematch of playoff Goliaths. The LA Chargers and Justin Herbert with the worst offensive line in football, and that is saying something, versus Drake May, who's supposed to be Tom Brady reincarnated. That game is set for the 5 o'clock game on the 11th. So we have those games. And who do you have coming out of that on top? Because as far as I know, I don't think New England's going to be on a first-round exit this year.
I think the Patriots are going to win. I mean, they were surprised. They were a surprise this season. After last season's debacle, not making the playoffs, and they really turned things around once the new coach came in, and that team is just that franchise is consistently excellent.
I think that is a big factor in that because you have Mike Vrabel, who comes over from Tennessee, and that team where he ended up, unfortunately, only going to the playoffs once. They beat the Ravens, but Mike Vrabel has that mentality that he had when he was playing for Belichick and how many teams he played for that were winners. So they put it all together in spite of Ramondre Stevenson's fumbling issues.
Is it? Quick question: is it at home or away for the Patriots?
Oh, they're in Foxborough.
Okay.
They're in Foxborough, so it's going to be a home crowd. I don't know
Yeah.
what the weather report is like, but I think, let me see, Foxborough weather.
And I gotta say this about Mike Vrabel. He wants to ride higher.
So the 11th is, let me check my calendar. That is a Sunday game. And
Yeah.
on Sunday in Foxborough, it's supposed to be 40 degrees with a 35% chance of rain. So that's gonna be a cold weather game for an LA team that doesn't like playing in the cold weather.
That might be
After that,
an advantage.
sorry, David, go ahead.
That might be an advantage to the Patriots, but it's kind of tricky because they don't have any playoff experience with that team since after Brady.
I don't think that's going to be a problem with the Chargers being beat up as they are on the offensive line. All the Patriots really have to do is get after Herbert, and then he's done. Meanwhile, he has McConkey, he has Keenan Allen, he has Quentin Johnston. He has deep threats and good players, but that's constantly your biggest issue is 1,000, 1,000, get the ball out while your pocket is collapsing on you in a second and a half instead of 1,000, 1,000 throw. It's 1,000 throw. Especially they had the worst
Yeah.
offensive line in the league, so that's gonna be a big matchup.
It's
That's
amazing how they
o'clock.
made the playoffs with that
I
beat up
agree.
offensive line.
They had the second worst record out of the divisional teams, the teams in the wild card so far, and they're playing the 2 seed. So, and the big one, Houston and the Steelers. That
That's
is the
gonna be a big
5:15 game on Monday night. So this one is a big one because I had no idea how Houston was going to react after last season. They've turned it around. They've gotten a great defense. This team beat the Chiefs and pretty much ended their season. So I do have on good regard the Texans will win this one, but I'm not going to doubt Aaron Rodgers in spite of his advancing age. That's kind of a big one right now. But Jesse, who do you have?
I have the Texans. They are a great team. CJ Stroud is doing pretty well. I
They're
think their defense is just undeniable, and I'm a Texas first by heart, and I never really liked the Steelers. The only time I liked the Steelers is during the Big Ben era and other, but no, and Aaron Rodgers is about to get retired.
So I just checked the weather report for that one. It's going to be 30. Oh, that's Sunday. Monday, it's going to be a brisk 35 degrees, 11-mile-an-hour winds, humidity of 63%. If they had been playing the day before, it would have been snowing. Yeah, it would have been light snow, 36 degrees with 15-mile-an-hour winds. But I do have Houston moving on as well to the divisional round. And now we move on to the NFC. You have Carolina and the Rams, who the Rams are coming off a season where they had a chance to win this division. Unfortunately, they kind of sputtered out to make the playoffs. They are now the 5 seed. Carolina came out of the woodwork and managed to survive the Falcons and the Buccaneers, becoming one of the very few to win a division with a losing record. Bryce Young managed to have a great year after all those bad seasons he had underneath Frank Reich. I do not see them beating the Rams and upsetting them, though. Matthew Stafford had 5 picks all of this season. He's got Nakua. He's got Cooper Kupp. He's got Kobe Parkinson. He's got a great defense behind him. I have the Rams taking this one. What about you, Jesse?
Same. I mean, the Panthers are there. They're just not. I mean, they're there, but not quite there yet. They need a few more pieces to put around Bryce Young. If I'm front office, I'm going to be looking into drafting those pieces and also picking up some reputable veterans to bring that could still go to mentor and level up those players, because this team was a surprise. I mean, the last team to make the playoffs on a losing record was the Seahawks.
2010, I believe. That was the
Yeah,
one where that was the last season that Matt Hasselbeck spent in Seattle, I believe. One of the last ones.
yeah, and
Oh, Johnny. That is Johnny. That's who I thought it was. But yes, the Seahawks
yeah.
have been good, but they got the bye, so we are not going to be talking about them at the moment. But go ahead and Jesse, continue.
Well, yeah, and that game was a shocker because put they made a Super Bowl caliber team like the Saints exit early in the playoffs, which was shocking.
So there you go. This is going to be a big one for the Rams because if they lose, whoever wins the game that we're going to go over next is going to be a big one. Because you have, for the first time in a long time, good evening, Danny. We have a playoff masterpiece coming up. You have a grade A old school rivalry coming out of Chicago. The Packers and the Bears. I don't remember the last time these two faced off in the playoffs. That's how rare it is.
Yep.
But the big one is whoever wins next week or this week faces probably the Eagles, because as a Niner fan, I've already heard that they're playing with house money because of all the injuries, but I think the Bears will come up with this win. If their defense is stopping Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs, I think they win. So, go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry. I was waiting on you.
I think the Bears are gonna beat the Packers. I mean, the Packers are like 9-7-1, who should have had a better record than that, but then that clash with the Cowboys, really.
I hate to say it, Jesse, but I think the Micah Parsons trade kind of killed their season.
Yeah,
it killed both of their seasons, actually,
It did.
if I think about it, because Dallas couldn't stop the run.
Yeah,
Parsons gets traded for Kenny Clark, who I don't think did anything in frickin' Green Bay. I don't think he did much of anything. And then all those picks that Green Bay's now going to get that Dallas is going to get for Parsons and everything else. It's just
those two first rounders. Hopefully, Jerry Jones will do something, but we all know his ego.
They finished 8-1, I think Dallas did. So they barely finished with a bit worse record than the Cowboys did. So, but this is going to be an interesting one, to say the least. Check the weather in Chicago, because I think that's another game that's played on. Oh, that's a Saturday game. So that's going to be on Saturday in Chicago in the middle of the winter. So let me see. Oops, I put the Bears in. It's Chicago weather. So that's a Saturday game. It's going to be snowing in Chicago. 45% chance precipitation. Wind as high as 20 miles an hour. Not counting wind gusts. So it's going to be a bad game if you have a kicker. But the final game that we're going to go over for the playoffs for Wild Card Weekend. The 49ers and the Eagles. The 49ers have been so banged up. They lost Tatum Bethune for the season now, based off the groin injury he ended up having against the Seahawks, who gave the Niners a really bad wake-up call at a point in the season where they really didn't need that. But Philadelphia is looking to defend their crown. They are the third seed. They have the worst record, but they have Saquon Barkley and that Philadelphia Eagles defense with Jordan Davis and with big Jalen Carter. They also have Reed Blankenship and they have Cooper DeJean playing center field for them as safeties. So, as much as it pains me, I think the Eagles move on. because the Niners, their defense cannot stop the run. It could not stop the run at all last week against Seattle at home. So I just don't think the Niners have it for this year.
What what do you th- what do you think is the game of the wild card weekend in the AFC and the NFC? Like, what is the game of the week for you for both leagues?
I think it's the Packers and the Bears, and I think it's the one that I like the best is going to be the Bills and the Jaguars. That one. Those are the two I think of at least. What about you, Jesse?
Same.
Because both
All right.
those games are because the Jaguars have won so few playoff games. The Bills, prior to that, I think it was 2021 or something like that, that the Bills actually made the playoffs. They went through such a long string. They haven't reached the Super Bowl since I think it was 1994. No, 93, because that was
Yeah.
against Dallas.
Yeah.
But I don't think that. I think they do beat the Jaguars, but it depends on what Trevor Lawrence does because they have a good defense that could take their opponents out of games, but Buffalo has to depend heavily on their offense. And by heavily on their offense, I don't mean giving Josh Allen the opportunity to run the ball as much as he does. Give your receivers a chance, but don't have it come down to what it came down to against Philly, where it was that throw at the goal line where they lost and could have had better seeding. Unfortunately, he just could not hit Khalif Shakir in the end zone for that 2-point conversion. So I know we're about half an hour in now. We're only on our third topic, but that's okay. This is the new one. Kazuma Okamoto. I saw somewhere that I thought he had signed with the Astros, but he ends up signing with the Blue Jays heading into the offseason now. There is a lot of change that's going to go on with them, I know for the most part, but they got their new third baseman of the future now. Good, sturdy young third baseman, has the ability to hit for average and power, but the biggest problem is now for them is they're going to have a big hole at shortstop now with them not bringing back Bo Bichette, who has now been associated with teams such as the Yankees, possibly the Red Sox, as well as the Dodgers.
Damn.
Toronto needs to get their stuff together if they're going to make it back to the postseason, let alone the World Series, because this was the first time they made it this far since 1993. But they did pick up some pitching, if I remember. But Toronto needs to focus, I wouldn't say less on what they've accomplished and more on what they want to accomplish. Because they're actually looking to try and get Kyle Tucker, which would be huge, but is it worth the price tag, in my opinion? Because I know Houston didn't sign him to a long-term contract, but there was also something along the lines that the Astros were willing to pay to get him back.
I would love to see him back in Houston. Why they got rid of him is beyond me, but
As for Toronto, I don't think they need a Kyle Tucker. They need to focus more on their pitching staff because I think that was their biggest downside now was them needing more pitching in the playoffs because they blew through their bullpen during the World Series so fast. And I think that was their biggest weak point was not being able to finish off those games. The only reason I say that is because a team that hasn't been to this point in the season in 32 years, they had a good closer, but Jeff Hoffman is not it. Because if you look at those teams that they faced in the playoffs, they had solid closers. Like Andres Munoz was with Seattle. Then you had guys like I think it was Detroit. Detroit had Brian Hennefy, but he wasn't solid either. So you have to really the biggest concern with Toronto is where they're going to be with their manager at this point, John Schneider. So how do you feel that they're going to finish heading because of what moves they have made? Where do you think they're going to end up come regular season.
I think they'll be in the playoffs, but I don't think they go any further than maybe a wild card.
I agree with you because the biggest concern I have with them right now is it's kind of like with Pittsburgh. We were talking about the Steelers. Your highest paid player, I think their highest paid guy right now, not named Vladimir Guerrero Jr., is Max Scherzer. Not talking about payroll wise, but you got to have guys who are there for the long term that aren't. No, I don't want AI. But their payroll was $255 million this past season. Their highest earners were Vlad Jr., George Springer, who's just turning 37 next year, I think. Well, this year. He's going to be 36, 37 years old. So you have to have a guy besides Vlad Jr., who they paid that $500 million contract to come around, because Gosman, $23 million, Scherzer, 15.5. But that's the bigger issue is I think Scherzer is going to be 42 this year. But I don't know if he's going to hang it up, but I don't think you necessarily need to bring him back because he's, he turns 42 in July, late July. But I think he's a free agent. Yeah, he's a free agent as of now, so they don't have to worry about him. But there's younger arms out there that they can bring in most certainly for that. But as far as I'm concerned, I do agree with you. Wild card at best because they have the offense. They showed that in the playoffs, but their bullpen just could not finish games for them. And I think that's their biggest problem is for most teams. You don't have a solid bullpen. You just end up blowing out your starters, especially. And this was a key turning point, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but Scherzer getting pulled in Game 7 before the 5th inning.
Yeah, that was insane.
Because he was pitching almost lights out. It was 3-0, and then his pitch count slowly getting up there. But you want Max Scherzer to be out there. That's your playoff. That's one of your best pitchers. And to me, that's almost the equivalent of the Kevin Cash, Blake Snell thing from 2020, where your best pitcher is not near a high pitch count, and you just decide, oh, it's the third time through the order, give me the ball. No. You've got a 41-year-old guy who once bunted a ball off his eye. He pitched with a black eye. He was that much of a competitor. And you pull him with less than 60 to 70 pitches through 5 innings, going into 5 innings. Toronto needs to manage themselves better, but if you and I are in agreement on the wild card, that's probably as far as they're going to go. Okay. So, I think this one is more associated with me. Las Vegas baseball. So, the Last Dive Bar, who I don't associate with as much anymore. The Athletics of Sacramento, or the Homeless A's, as most people like to call them, tried to apply last year, 2 years ago, for the Las Vegas Athletics name, while they were still in Oakland. What would go on to happen is this. They applied for the namesake, but they did it too late. So the team known as the Athletics now wanted to be known as the Las Vegas Athletics, but they could not get the trademark because the Last Dive Bar got the trademark before they did. They bought the trademark, and the A's got denied last year and this year, and in 2024 and in 2025 for the trademark. My biggest issue is seeing that stadium, and Jesse, you live in Texas. I know it's hot there.
Yeah.
So my biggest problem is this. Seeing the stadium that the Las Vegas Raiders play in now, where it's a dome, because it's 115 during the summer, and it's in the 80s and 90s during the fall. But just the design alone, the flaws with that thing, it's not a dome. It's not a dome. All that air is still going to sneak in there through the parts of the stadium where it's not completely covered. So you better hope your air conditioning bill's paid up, because no one wants to play in 110-degree heat, even when that stadium's built. How many people are going to actually go there if you don't have something associated with gambling or anything? Because the only team that's related to baseball there was the Las Vegas Aviators, and that's the A's AAA team now. And they don't sell out there either, because, contrary to popular belief, that Las Vegas ballpark that they have out there, it's hot there during the summer. Let alone, don't think about how hot Sacramento is. I've been to Sacramento a number of times during the summer. It gets over 100 degrees by 1 o'clock there, naturally. That's why, because I know most of the Texas-related teams, they're indoors for a reason. Dallas is indoors. The Stars are indoors because they're a hockey team. The Spurs are indoors in an arena. Every team in the Dallas Metroplex area, not Nevada, where it's hotter, is indoors. How stupid can people get? I know it's going to attract tourists, and it's like, oh, $1,000 for a ball game, that's not that bad. Because they don't have to be there watching a god-awful team that's not going to be good while they're there. It's just ridiculous. Okay. Baseball is back on NBC for Sunday Night Baseball. I know it's been a long time since that's happened. A very long time, in fact, that Al Michaels, Bob Uecker, and Bob Costas were the three-man group when they were still on NBC. Jesse, do you think the ratings are going to be as good as they were, considering this is 27 years later? They have not shown baseball on NBC since 1999.
Man, I remember that. It's been a long time. I think I would love for more sports to be on national TV again, because these apps just swallow up everything, you know, and the expense is just crazy. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that the ratings are good. That way they could keep baseball on NBC.
You hit the nail on the head with the streaming services, because that's been another problem was with Apple TV. I know most people don't like Apple TV showing baseball. You have to have the Apple TV. You have to have Apple TV, which wasn't a real success either. YouTube TV, which isn't a real success. They tried it on there too. And now with ESPN having ABC and Hulu, that's going to be another big one, because NBC doesn't normally show baseball, but for years it was that MLS is only on Apple TV too. But
Major League Soccer.
well, that's the problem, is there's a soccer team maybe 8 or 9 miles from where I live. It's right next to, there's an In-N-Out Burger out there, but the problem is it's like every sport. You have to have people who care to watch your sport. That's why, specifically with NBC, they're heavy on football. Soccer and fencing become more popular. Oh, that's actually really cool that you had family that was Olympic level fencing and fencing coaches. Wow, that's really nice. San Antonio Scorpions did really well. I'm glad they had a good season. But for NBC, like you said, I do hope the success is there as well, because NBC, I don't know what it is, but it's always been, quality-wise, it's always been like NBC, CBS, Fox.
Yeah.
because CBS always had that thing. But another thing is, specifically with NBC, the whole basketball intro, if they can come up with something just as good as that for their baseball segments again, where I think it was called Round Ball Rock for NBA on NBC, where it's da 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 da. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. If they can do something just as good as that, more people will watch. Just don't charge an arm and a leg or throw it on a streaming service. NBC, you can generally get on a generic cable package too. So, but no, NBC would be a good idea. The less it's on ESPN, the better it will be. Because ESPN is some of the crappiest, most overproduced sporting events I've ever seen. They used to have 4 ESPN channels. It was ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN The Ocho, don't go on that one, and then ESPN News. You had 4 different ESPNs, but that's enough of that. Okay, so we're on to number 6. Your first job interview experience, what type of questions were you asked? Jesse, I'll let you go first because I feel like you have more experience with the job interview circuit.
Oh man, it's pretty man. Well, back then, the questions were simple. I don't know how it is now because nowadays you can't. You have to fill an application online. You don't really do it in paper no more, which I liked better because paving the streets for work was getting you out there. Now you just do it on a phone. But yeah, they even had those questions that you can't ask either, which but it's hard to remember. But things have changed. So how about
I
you?
remember when I first started trying to apply for work, I was 16, 17 years old. Because I'm 30 now, and when I was 16, 17 years old, there was still the paper job application, having to dress up, having to go physically in person and talk to the boss. Even though applying online was still very new when I was in my teens, you had to go in and ask for a job. But the way it used to be was you had a pulse, or it didn't matter if you were educated or not. If you had a pulse, you wanted to work, and you weren't abusing substances. That was about as easy as it got to be. Of course, when I first started, I didn't get a job when I was that young. I tried to work at the job I'm at now when I was that age, when I was in my mid-teens, late teens. And when I was 19, I applied for, I think it was 25 to 20 to 30 different jobs, and 3 of them I only got interviews with, and they're like, one of the biggest questions was always, why should we hire you?
Yeah, and you would have to sell yourself. That's the one thing about jobs. You have to sell yourself. You have to be confident, enthusiastic. You have to have that charismatic part of you.
That was always the big one, was selling yourself, work ethic. And another one that never got talked about, how much should we pay you?
Yeah.
That was always the taboo one. Do you have problems working with the public? And another one was, this was different then, but it's not different now, because they allow people to work if they've previously been in jail now, which is really different because they don't want to discriminate in that manner. But it was always, why should we hire you? Do you have the ability to work here? Have you worked here before? Do you know anybody who works here? Or have you been fired or had any issues? It's a very different place between where Jesse was in the 90s and early 2000s and where I was in the 2010s and now where I'm at now.
Yeah.
You have 2 different generations who applied for jobs in 2 different eras, where it used to be if you had a pulse and you wanted to work, you'd be hired right away.
Yep. Sometimes you get hired on the spot. That happened to me when I just tried out for Popeyes.
Yeah, and that's generally what happens. DJ had 4 interviews for a dishwasher job at a hospital. He didn't get it. Because they sometimes will do that to you and you don't realize it. Where now I found out because I tried to get a second job. It's more difficult to get a job now in general with AI being involved so much.
Yeah.
Like you can't AI your resume, but when you write your own resume, you can ask AI to change your words and then fix them into a more professional manner.
Yep.
I've learned that. And it's not cheating, it's not plagiarism. It's just allowing you to have a better opportunity. I'm not saying to accept it, but it
Yeah.
gets you a better chance because they do most of those resumes now through. And the sad part is sometimes they didn't even look at your resume.
Yeah.
Because even now, you look on certain job sites, they put qualifications, master's degree, and then the rate. The two don't match. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. It just depends on what you do and what you want to do. Okay. I think we've done number 7 before, so it's show anything you have in any collection if able.
I could do that.
You are more than welcome to. I've just about showed my entire collection that I have.
Oh, this is my N64 collection so far. Let's start with my wrestling games that I got. No Mercy.
No, that's a classic.
Yes. WrestleMania 2000.
That's another good one. I like that one.
WCW versus NWO World Tour.
I didn't know about that one. I knew about the one where they're fighting backstage and everything.
Yeah. WCW versus the World is what started this one. And then I think my favorite one out of the 2 WCW games, WCW versus the WCW NWO Revenge. And then a guilty pleasure, WCW Mayhem.
That was the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
That one I liked playing. But it was I didn't ever really get a chance to play those games.
They're awesome.
Like I have WWE 2K16 and 2K17. I loved those older versions because after seeing what 2K20 looked like,
Oh yeah.
that thing was just hot garbage. And that one, funnily enough, that reset the whole series because they didn't make 2K21 after that. They made Battlegrounds,
Yeah.
and that was a hot mess too.
Yeah, that was a hot mess too under a paywall. They could have made that. Nowadays gaming is just, it's annoying, and it started with PlayStation and Xbox 360 where you had to download stuff from a disc. Like when you're playing like games like Dragon Age where it takes like freaking centuries for the you had.
Oh yeah, I've had to go through that before, but it's funny because I can show you an example I have right here. Because I've got my own little. I don't have too much of it. But where is it? I just had it, but it's Borderlands. I don't know if you've ever played that one.
Yeah, I played both. I played the first one and second one.
Well, I played the third one. The third one, there's technically 5 games, but this was always my favorite, was the original. And this is what I mean. They don't have this anymore.
Yeah.
The physical copy. This is what I'm talking about. They don't have this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Now, kids, if you're listening, listen to Grandpa. Listen to Uncle Jesse and Grandpa over here. The way it used to be was it would come in these. It wouldn't just be like with the Switch where it's that little square. They used to come like this and like that with actual cases that you had to get scanned by. You had to actually get them scanned, and you couldn't buy them unless you had your parents buy them
And
for you.
they would come with
Can you
Matt.
see my physical collection over there of the video games I have? For
Yes, but this
yeah,
was always the big one. Was this little booklet right here? It would teach you how to play the game.
I remember those for the
Yeah.
Nintendo
This,
Wii.
yeah, it would tell you how to
Yeah.
play the game without having. Good God, this. I forgot I bought this at a GameStop. I bought this
Rest in
physically at
peace.
a GameStop in 2017.
Same here with this one, dude. This
That is
one,
the.
Oblivion will always be my favorite Elder Scrolls game. I mean Skyrim and Oblivion are my favorite out of the series.
See, that's just the thing, though. And me and Jesse are aging ourselves a bit, but you
Me
used to
too.
be able to go into game stores and physically try the games.
Yes.
There used to,
Unfortunately, there's no more GameStop in my local area, and
which
I'm
is
just
funny that you talk about that. The GameStop that's about a mile and a half, 2 miles from my house, is shutting down next week.
Damn.
And I
and I
know
was
why.
frustrated. Was that
Because I'm old enough to know, but Jesse knows this best because when they used to launch consoles, you used to have to go and wait until midnight of the launch date. You used to camp out
Yes.
and get the console then on launch date at midnight. You'd be getting there with your dad, and your dad would say, "I don't even know why I'm taking you to this place. You're not going to go sit in your room and play video games for hours on end." But you did.
same thing with the video game like this as well, like the physical copies of the video games
That
there.
is very much a childhood thing. That's why I
Yes.
feel bad for the next generation because everything that they have, it's going to be stuck on their system. That's why physical media will never die.
Yeah.
And
DVDs, VHSs. The problem is if you have games
DVD
downloaded to your system, it
DVD
does.
players for the car. DVD players for the car.
Oh my God. I couldn't watch DVDs in my mom's van, which we just got rid of about a month ago, because I got car sick.
That's why I
Horribly
stopped
car
doing.
sick.
That's why I stopped doing that too, because it's just like I'm more
Because
in the front of the
especially
car
on a
now.
windy road and you've just ate,
Yeah.
forget it.
Yeah,
You cannot. It's even worse because the phone is almost the same thing. Because you're watching stuff on your phone, and you're like, you're trying not to throw up. But
For
I tried to play my 3DS in the car one time, and I'm just like, nope, not again.
no,
yeah,
it
yes, yes,
messes with.
yes.
Yeah, no, because when you're looking down, your stomach's just like ready, aim, fire.
Fire.
Pretty
Yeah,
And
much.
your mouth muscles ain't gonna hold all that.
No,
that's why I hate it when people say, "Oh, the radio is dead." Bull crap. That's for the car, it's for the reason, something to listen to while you're driving.
it's funny because I listen to the radio, but I also have the subscriptions where you can go like
S-
Spotify or I
Yeah.
Sirius
can get
XM.
Apple Music. And I just do this. I connect it with the Bluetooth to my phone and I listen to the radio that way because I I always liked CDs better.
Yes.
Always and forever loved a good CD.
Yeah.
That's
David's like,
why
which is CD?
well,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding, Dave.
You have Sirius XM.
I've never used SiriusXM. I've wanted to, but it's like with certain things where the subscriptions and everything else, they change the price without acknowledging you and they won't tell you. I'm going to go use the restroom. I will be right back
Oh,
and we will finish this up.
yeah,
I will mute
yeah, for
and I
sure.
will turn off camera, but if you want to talk about number 8,
Yeah.
number 8 is the pros and cons on your experience with 2025.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll say this. Like, I just get frustrated when I saw that my GameStop was closed, forever because of this. Like, that was the only good store that I actually liked going to. I don't like shopping
Yeah.
unless if it's I don't like shopping unless uh I like to go shopping online for Black Friday, but other than that, I don't like shopping at all. And that was the only good store that I like going to, but they're just finishing away, and it's very sad because it got replaced by like a bank or something, and I'm
Yeah,
just like,
I hate that. I hate when places like just go under, due to bad business deals. Like we had that 99-cent store over here, and it was pretty cool to go to because you could just simply it was simply walking. Now it's a Harbor Freight, and I'm like, and I go buy Harbor Freight, and I'm like this, because like,
well, all I know is that they should keep GameStop open, but they're not going to do that because of the computer, which is sad. But and also, of course, digital digital copies of the games as well. That's another
yeah.
big reason. I don't know when they started doing that with the digital copies, but I think it was the Nintendo Switch that started doing that, but I could be wrong.
Nintendo Switch. I wish they would just bring back. I just wish they would bring back. I don't even care. Like you could like keep the physical media going. You know,
Yeah,
I mean back then all we had to do we didn't have we didn't need downloads. All you had to do was take one of these, put it in a console, and it come on. Of course you would have to clean the cartridge out.
yeah,
You would have to get a Q-tip and you would have to clean out the
Oh,
chip area.
you had to
yeah,
clean some.
if you
Yeah,
had the money, but most people,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
I'm
never
pretty sure David
failed.
has to do that with his NES. He's like, okay, I'm gonna play Super Punch Out.
I haven't played it that much. I've been waiting to
I
get new games for it, but
they
still,
call I know what I call it now, but it's kind of funny that I thought about that just now. I call it the harmonica method because it
Yeah,
looks about the same size, and then you're blowing the air in and everything else, and then you
yeah,
had to make sure. But the way it is they made the consoles better, but the games aren't as great. You can
yeah.
increase the capacity of a console as much you want, but the Xbox and the PlayStation and the Nintendos are all just gonna they're going to flounder after physical media is still around and they fail.
The one thing I do like about the Nintendo Switch is that you can play classic retro games on there with other people online, and that is a unique thing. But that's the only thing I like about the Switch.
See, that's what I don't understand though. They're trying to bastardize physical media when it comes to that, and I never understood because I have games for the Wii, GameCube, and for my PlayStations. The only digital media I have, technically, is for the PS4 because I can't
yeah.
afford to go pick these games out at GameStop because they. And don't get me started on DK Oldies. DK Oldies is garbage.
I usually use eBay. eBay's a great resource, but you also have to be aware of repros. You know,
Yes.
let
Yeah,
me tell you something about repros. They some do work, and these are repros. This is WC. This is No Mercy, but
Yeah.
you know it was like a reproduction, and then I actually thought I got this as a legitimate one, and this one really
No.
wasn't.
Yeah, no, you've always got to be careful of
Yeah,
that stuff, but
yeah.
this time,
Repros do play. Like they even have the Pokemon games that are reproduced into a cartridge and homebrewed. But the only issue with repros is like you're pretty much you don't know what you're getting. You don't know if you're going to get a game that doesn't save, that doesn't have that flash thing. That's the one thing about these wrestling games is they have those flash rams.
now the Mario game I have for the NES is in the game console itself, but here's an example of the physical copy for the NES right here. So interesting.
I
This
see.
is
What is that?
that is
that's
Wheel of Fortune. That is an old version of Wheel of Fortune.
the Mario game is in the console itself, so but this is what the NES physical copies of the games used to be back then. But I'm waiting for more games, but I don't know what good games are there for that I can learn how to play quickly because
Super Mario, oh, his Super Punch Out is one of them. With Mike Tyson's
Oh
Punch Out.
God, I never hated Punch Out. It's always more difficult when you have who was it? Mr. Dream was supposed to be their version of Mike Tyson, and I hated that matchup every time
mm,
because you don't think, oh hey, they've got Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
yeah,
I can give you good games. The very first Street Fighter
That
yeah, that one. David could try and play Legend of Zelda, but he'd be
oh heck,
oh,
oh heck no, heck
Dude,
no.
Legend of Zelda. That
yeah,
one is very difficult. I'm
yes,
trying to remember which system it was, but do you remember the one where it had the 6 buttons on the side and then the joystick?
yeah, that was crazy.
Well, speaking of joysticks like that, the first console I ever had as a kid was the Be Smile console.
I've never
But
heard of that one, but the, probably the most messed up controller I ever had to try and use was the N64 controller.
Oh yes,
Because you're supposed to have a third hand, and you have the worst thing about that was the control spinning.
yeah,
yeah, but anyway, I'm gonna go backstage here and go with the pros and cons for 2025.
Okay, so the pros and cons for 2025. One of the pros still made it through alive, so there you go.
yeah,
Um, was able to learn a few more things, got my car fixed and everything else. Cons, unfortunately, you lose people in the year 2025,
yeah,
and that's difficult. And I know baseball's going to have a lockout soon, so that's another con that's coming through, but you live with the good and you live with the bad. So you got to hope for the best, and if things change for the better, that's what you have to look forward to. You can't stay stuck in the past. So there's that.
yeah.
Okay. So this last one, because I know number 10, what are you thankful for is kind of a different question, but
Yeah.
number 9, and I've never been a big fan of telling people what to do, but the question is, when should people get married? And then there's context underneath it. Once they have a job, settle for life, and what is the age limit that people will get trouble married for a good chance of it? So I'm 30, and I've been thinking, and I've had a hard time with relationships. You don't have to get married. That's always the way. I wasn't taught that way, but eventually you'll find someone who loves you for you. And if you find it well enough to get married, I suggest always having a suitable enough income to get married, because marriage license is number one.
Yep.
Then you have to have enough money for a wedding. And most people go extravagant, and it's harder to go extravagant when you don't have that type of budget. That's why whenever I think about it, it's not whether or not you're ready to get married. It's whether or not you're really ready to deal with the person if they change. Because
Yeah.
that's another thing. Because people say they change, but it's just like sometimes it's just you don't want to put up with the other person's family or something like that. That's normally a big one. So you always got to be aware of things like that, though, because for the most part, I'd say 35 maybe would be a good age to get married, because by 35, I think you should have
Your shit together.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Because some people do, some people don't. Some people just get married late in life. They got engaged, they never got married, and then they basically are married. They feel they don't need a marriage license to say that they're married. People are like that all the time. They don't need a ring to show that they love each other.
Yeah, there's also people like they just move in together. They don't get married. They just don't have to worry about certain bank accounts or whatever, which is another thing.
And that's fine. It's normally called a situationship, but sometimes you live life the way you have to, because unfortunately, in this day and age, it's harder to live by yourself. Because even in California,
Yep.
wow, I've never heard anyone else point that out about the person changing. Brilliant. Well, everybody has their real self that they are. They don't
Yeah,
hide. They don't sugarcoat. They don't pretend. Pretending to be somebody you're not is not going to get you more friends, better family, or anything else. Besides, I hate to say this, but movies. You see enough of these movies where, oh, I'm this person. I'm pretending to be this person. I pretend I have all this money. I pretend I'm famous. I pretend I have this nice car. When in reality, they are not that. But the problem
yeah,
is, most people don't like when people lie about themselves. Like, if you lie about who you are,
yeah.
the person is going to lose trust in you, and then they're not going to want to be around you anymore.
Yep.
That's why I don't think there's ways to know whether or not you should get married. Because the expectation is you are stuck with this person until you die.
Yeah.
That's why the divorce rate is 50%.
Oh, really? Jeez.
It's been that high because divorces have always been a thing where people want to have kids, people don't want to have kids, they don't want to have to deal with their mother, someone's mother, because everybody from every generation is different. You were brought up differently. Some people
What
don't want
about
to
what
work
about what about the percent rate before social media?
for what time?
Uh, my guys for like divorces. Like, what is the percent rate like before social media?
I think as they get older, the divorce percentage goes down.
Yeah,
I think it's once they get past the age of 50, it goes down.
yeah,
Because when you're in your between your 20s and your in your 40s, because my parents got married when my mom was 18, my dad was 27, and they were married for 44 years.
that's
So
good.
my dad passed away at 71, and my mom is now 70. This year would have been their 50th, no, 53rd wedding anniversary.
Oh, okay.
So that's just something I think about quite a bit. Is they got married while they were young, and they had 3 kids. They provided for each other, and they got a house and everything else. They had the kids, and they lived until they didn't stop loving each other, because basically
Yeah,
you find that type of love, you don't stop being married to somebody. It's all about
yeah,
your headspace and how you feel about the person, basically.
yeah. I agree.
You have to be ready for commitment. That's why when you're committed to something, you can't just say, I was not ready for this. There's no redos. That's
Yeah,
why divorce is so high. It's because people change. People weren't ready. People don't have enough money for their taste anymore. They changed, quote unquote. They get sick of dealing with the person or their family. They don't like what the person is doing for a living. They don't like the fact that they're being treated differently. There's a lot of factors that go into marrying somebody. That's why you have to worry about these things. I mean, I was born
you
to
know,
parents who were born in the 40s and 50s. I was born to baby boomer parents who went through these experiences. My parents were alive during Vietnam, the Civil War, the Civil Rights Act, and everything else. And they were
yeah,
there during the Reaganomics eras, the internet age, and even now where they've reached the modern age. My parents were, even my grandmother was alive until 2014, so she was there. She was alive during all the during World War II when she was only 19 when World War II ended. So, but
Yeah.
no, I've got a family that's experienced what it was like to love and lose. So you have to have that experience in life to where you could finally get married. Where
Also, you gotta have that job security that for your career.
yes, that's another thing is that relates to number six is number six with the job experience relates to getting married
Yeah.
because some people just stay at home. They don't work, they take care of the kids. But
Yeah.
that was the way it used to be was you got married, you had a wife, you had a kid. The wife normally stayed at home, but during the war, women went to work.
Yeah.
There's been no way ever since. Now both work.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a single mother, sometimes there's a single father because things didn't work out, or they passed away, or they
There's
got.
also there's also work from home.
But that's the thing that I think has affected people the most in the last 5 years with marriage rates and everything else is with the pandemic and so many people were stuck at home.
Yeah.
They got closer and they learned more about each other. That's
That's
another
the only
thing.
thing. Only good thing about. Yeah.
You've got to be prepared because there's certain quirks about people you learn about when you're stuck
Yeah.
with them for too long. Where you were happily married, and next thing you know, you're yelling at each other because you're stuck in the same house all the time when that was going on. But now, the
Yeah.
important thing is you learned what they do and don't like. So, but again, it's some people don't have time to get married, and life is short. So
We
that's
all
the way it
we all
is.
thought we all thought the pandemic was gonna last 2 weeks, but it lasted until like 2022 or something.
Well, it's not. It's over, but it's there's always another thing that's out there.
Yeah.
Measles is on the uprise, and you got to really worry about that because measles are not fun. I've
Yeah.
never had it because I have had my shots and everything else, but you've always got to be aware that the next thing that's out there can and will throw you for a loop. That's why
Yeah.
they basically tell you to expect the unexpected. You
I
don't just
agree.
go through life saying, I'm invincible. Life will
Yeah.
take a crowbar to your shins and say, did you expect that? You didn't.
I know that feeling.
Like, you always have to be prepared for the next thing that's going to happen to you. And you
Yeah.
won't. You won't be prepared. Unfortunately, that's just how you go about life is you can and will have to put up with something that you weren't ready for. But
Yeah. But
that's why I'm thankful for whatever I can do. I'm thankful for whatever's around me, and unfortunately, you got to be thankful for the difficulty that you're given because sometimes
mhm.
life will seem too easy, and the next thing you know,
Yeah.
you can't carry on during the hard tasks. So it's all up
Yeah.
here, though. When it comes to difficulty and degree of difficulty, is you ensure yourself every day that something is not going to be difficult. It won't be. But if you keep being pessimistic about it, that's when life's going to weigh you down. Not everyone is as weak as they seem or as strong as they seem. You got to give yourself credit, but you can't just say someone else is going to do this for me.
Yeah.
If it was meant for you to finish, you've got to finish it.
Mhm.
And that's just the way
Jesse,
it works.
what are you thankful for? Excuse me.
Huh?
What are you thankful for?
Oh, I'm thankful for family, friends, my loved
Same here.
ones. Yeah.
Yep. That's that's why Thanksgiving is a good holiday for those reasons. But it also has like every holiday has its ups and downs. Especially the where you're at in the world and what type of season it is in, and also like how the day goes. But that makes me wonder how that football became Thanksgiving's most popular tradition. Same thing with basketball with Christmas.
Uh, well, for the most part, it had to do with, I think, baseball is America's pastime, but football, you go and it brings the family together. That's why it's for Thanksgiving. That's specifically the way I see it is basketball, it gives you something to do on Christmas. Because for the most part, that's what I've realized is Christmas, you don't watch football. That's a Thanksgiving thing for the most part. Because
Yeah,
you're thankful, then you go watch football as your dad falls asleep in his lazy boy after eating that turkey.
yeah,
Because I'm sorry, but there was never a Thanksgiving where you didn't have, and I know this is different for everybody, but if dad ain't, well, my dad didn't drink any at all as he got older, but if you don't have a dad who was propped up with his feet in the air, watching some sort of program, and then you hear, he's passed out.
yeah.
That's generally how it works on Thanksgiving is you watch football to sleep off what you just ate. And most
I
part, it's because your mom made a great turkey that made you pass out. Because if that turkey ate
yeah.
heavy in your stomach, you didn't eat enough.
I hate LeBron James in the passion, but the one thing I do agree with him on is that Christmas, but you know, basketball belongs to Christmas. When he said that, I was just like, for once, I
Just
agree with you.
fits. It fits.
Yeah,
You got your Christmas presents and everything else. You open your Christmas presents, you watch basketball.
yeah,
Because basketball is naturally a winter sport.
it
Football
is.
is a fall sport. Baseball, spring
This
and
is a
summer.
spring summer.
There you
Yeah,
go. It's covering the holidays basically. Well, not basically, but you're covering and then in the and then after basketball, you have hockey intertwined with it. Hockey,
yeah.
certain people play hockey, some play basketball in the fall. Every
Hockey, hockey's been doing better than basketball by a mile.
well, it's because I'll say this to be honest with you. You get 3 60-minute periods in hockey,
Yeah,
and there's always something going on. In
yep.
basketball, you get
It,
more scoring. In hockey,
yeah,
you get more violence. In football, you never know what's going to happen. And in
Yeah.
baseball, the owners suck and the players are overpaid.
yeah. That's why there's gonna be a lockout.
I can't wait. That's gonna be so much fun. Which is funny because people were just talking about this the other day. It's who was it? It was a comparison between Kyle Tucker and Luis Arise. Luis Arise, it's January 7th. He's not been signed by anybody. He had this big contract he just gotten off of. He led the league in hits last year again with 181 in the National League. But he's not been signed. They were just talking about this. Why he hasn't been signed, I have no idea. He's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 in 62 days because that's April 9th. He was
My
born April
question,
9th, 1997. And since 2023, he's got 600, no, 584 hits in that time frame. Good for a 319 clip. In 154 games last year, he didn't play, he played all but 8 games. He had 181 hits. He struck out just 21 times in 154 games, which means
my
in 675 plate appearances, they do the amount he struck out 3%. He struck out 3% of the time.
my question is, why did the Orioles DFA Big Christmas?
Oh, Jaconzi Noel?
Yeah,
Well, I can give you an answer for that one as well.
when I saw
Jaconzi
that, I was just
Noel
like,
has only played 2 years in the majors. His negative WAR is the biggest problem.
I'm just like, why did you
He
sign
was
him in
worth
the first
positive
place? If,
WAR, and he's worth negative WAR now. His WAR last season, he was not a valuable player. He was worth negative 1.4 WAR. In his career, his WAR is negative 0.4. So in 136 career games, he's just 63 for 327, which is the equivalent of a 193 batting average based off baseball reference. The biggest problem here, David, his strikeout total. He struck out 52 times last season with the Guardians, excuse me. 52 times on 148 at bats. That is 34%. That's
I'm
why
just
he
like,
got the
why did
FA.
you? I'm just like, why did you give him an offer to have him sign in the first place if we're gonna DFA him right away? I guess the strikeout
Well,
total they forgot about.
the biggest thing is Jaconzi Noel is only 24 years old, but the guy they just got off waivers is much better. He was a first round pick.
Who's that?
His name is Marco Luciano. While he's not better, he played last season in the minors for the Giants.
Oh,
He's only 23. No, he's 24 as well. But he was a first round pick by the Giants, I think. Let me see. So he's not an Oriole. It doesn't show. I hate when they do that. It doesn't show when he got drafted. So I guess he was just a foreign free agent. But he's now been on 3 teams in the off season. He went from the Giants to the Pirates. Now he's on the Orioles. But
okay.
he's better than Noel in ways that I would say defensively he's better. He only hit 211 in 27 games last year. Struck out 28 times and 76 at bats. 34.6 for 2024. But he's better defensively. That's the biggest thing. Yes, he has a negative 0.5 WAR for that season, but if I look at his minor stats for this past season in Sacramento, he hit 214 with 170 strikeouts, but he still had 23 home runs and stole 10 bases. So his biggest thing is if he gets his walk total up, he'll be better. But that's the biggest thing is I don't understand why Luis Ariz has not been signed because if a guy struck out only 21 times the entire year, back in the
Well,
90s, Tony Gwynn was doing that every year. And the fact that he
thanks to
didn't win the
videotapes.
batting title this year was rare because 2022, 2023, 2024, he won it every year. This was the one year he had a bad year or an off year, excuse me.
Tony Gwynn used VHS tapes.
Well, he was one of the first ones to do it back then. But the one
Yeah.
thing I think about right now is Luis Ariz at 28. He's going to be 29 in April, but he had 200 hits going on back-to-back years, and he played in more games, but he just didn't hit as much. His walk total was higher, but he wasn't getting on base in a manner that would make someone want them. He's got as many home runs as he does stolen bases, just about. He's 28. He's already got 1,000 hits. If he doesn't play in, say, Minnesota, because his walk total has gone up while his hit totals have gone up, and his strikeout totals have gone down. He struck out 48 times when he was with the Twins in 2021, went down to 43, 34, 29, and a career low at 21. I don't remember the last time someone was that great. I think the last person to strike out that low a time, you'd have to go back about a decade, which is funny because I didn't even realize this had happened. But the one I think about, 2014 Victor Martinez, his last great season he had as a Tiger. He had 33 doubles, 32 home runs, and struck out only 42 times. He did get walked 28 times intentionally, but his on base 409. He struck out almost 1.5 times more than he walked. 70 walks, 42 strikeouts. You don't see these types of numbers, but then you get a guy like Kyle Schwarber. I'll wrap it up here in a moment. But Kyle Schwarber, he's in his 11th year. He struck out over 1,500 times, and he's walked over 100 times his last 3 seasons. But he struck out almost, I think, 800 times in his last 4 years, all of them with Philadelphia. So,
Yeah.
809 strikeouts, 426 walks, 187 home runs. He led the league in home runs, RBIs, and games played. He walked 108 times, but he struck out 197 times and finished second in NL MVP voting, behind only Shohei Ohtani, who had more walks, a higher batting average, higher slugging, higher OPS, higher runs scored. He scored 146 runs, and he was 3 runs more valuable as a hitter. 3 wins more valuable as a hitter, excuse me. But that's just it. Arise only had a 1.2 wins above replacement, but he does get on base, but he doesn't walk as much as Schwarber does. That's the biggest thing. He's not what you would call a free swinger, but he gets bat on ball.
What the heck?
Stupid phone. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
it's okay. but my
That's gonna be
question
the
is,
biggest thing is, and they were just talking about this. Why are these 3 players unsigned? And I said these 3 players that are, because Luis Arias doesn't have Scott Boras as his agent.
yeah,
Owners are tired of dealing with Scott Boras and his outrageous proclamations for his players. His demands are too high.
yeah, like Alex Bregman had to be ghost, had to be ghost all the Red Sox people he affiliated with before the like when the offseason began.
Yeah, Bregman, Tucker, Bellinger, all Boras clients, all still unsigned.
Yeah,
And the biggest thing that pissed me off was Bellinger wants $400 million on the wrong side of 30. I would have told him no, and I would have laughed in his face.
yeah,
Because I hate to say it, but Bregman, Tucker, and Bellinger are all over the age of 30 now, I believe. Bregman's going to be 32 at the end of March. And he put up his worst season since 2021 when he was still with the Astros. He only played the 1 season in Boston, and he wasn't good. He's still on the decline. He was an all-star. Yeah, good for you, but that was it. It
yeah,
was his first time being an all-star since 2019 when he finished second in MVP voting and had 119 walks, 41 home runs. He's not gotten to be that caliber of a player since then. And if I
yeah,
remember that contract, that was supposed to be, and that's the stupid part, he would have gotten $41 million this year from Boston if he stayed,
mm-hmm,
but he didn't.
yeah,
And then Cody Bellinger, they just talked about this, the Yankees. They said they want to sign him, but they don't think they can. He's on his 9th season now. Him and I are the same age. He just turned 30 in July. He had his best season since 2023 when he was with the Cubs.
Who is having the best offseason right now as for team wise?
I would say Toronto because they got the guys they have.
I said the same thing. Yeah,
But there's plenty of teams that still need to make. Toronto Blue Jays off season. moves.
I think
Because
about
they've got
Toronto.
Dylan Cease for $40 million a year from now until 2033. Okamoto they have until 2030. Cody Ponce, who they ended up getting from Japan or KBO, 10 million a year over 3 years. Tyler Rogers, 3 years, $37 million, and they got Shane Bieber to opt in. So they've gotten three starters, a great reliever in Tyler Rogers, and Okamoto who can hit for power and get on base. The only
Today you're
problem
saying today
they
you're
don't
saying
have what's his name? Bichette's still a free agent, so there's that.
does Japanese baseball players get signed by major league um baseball teams when is the WBC? Because I'm just like I don't know how
They can
often.
play for their home team.
Oh, I know that, but I'm like, how often do you usually get into the MLB free agency? Like, how often?
Uh, let me see. Let's see.
Because
ATB. Um.
if I remember, like Yoshida got signed right before the WBC, and I'm just like, oh, so usually the WBC when they get accepted to a
Okay.
free agent.
So the way it used to be is you could get posted.
That's what I mean, posted. Yeah.
They call it the posting system. So at the end of the 2018 posting period, 23 players have been posted from that league have been posted using that system. Five were unsuccessful. 12 signed major league contracts. Four signed minor league contracts. Five were unsuccessful in attracting any interest, and two could not come to an agreement within the 30 days. The
Mm-hmm.
five highest profile ones are Ichiro, Daisuke, Yu Darvish, Masahiro Tanaka, and Shohei Ohtani. But the original one to go through that stuff was the Murakami guy. Masanori Murakami would end up playing. This was the Nankai Hawks in 1964. So this was going on 62 years now. So what happened was they traded three exchange prospects to get experience in the MLB minor league system. One of them was Murakami, and he ended up getting called up. And they ended up agreeing that he was on loan for 64. They sent him back after the 65 season, and then he pitched one more season for the Giants. Then he returned to Japan, and then it led to the 67 season where it was the U.S. Japanese player contract agreement, also known as the working agreement, which is basically a hands-off policy. But that led to what's going on now, where all this happens. It came on to the 90s. So Hideo Nomu used the reserve clause to get out of it. He utilized a loophole to retire from the PBE and terminate his contract with the Kanetsu Buffaloes, who he was applying to. He announced his retirement in 94, signed with the Dodgers in 1995, and went on to pitch for them for as long as he did. 1997, Hideki Irabu ended up signing with the Padres through a working agreement, and he said he would only sign with the Yankees. And that's how that whole thing got started. So they traded Hideki Irabu to the Yankees, who signed him to a $3.2 million a season deal over 4 years, $12.8 million then for Irabu. And the most infamous one people don't even know about, Alfonso Soriano. He was Dominican born, but he signed over in Japan to start with.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 1998. In 1998, Alfonso Soriano was unable to leave the Carp due to contract restrictions. He disliked their practice schedule, and they denied him a salary increase from $45,000 to $180,000 a year. And Don Nomura, who was the agent at the time for Irabu and Hideo Nomo, they tried to void his contract by arguing that he was legally a minor when he signed it. and then he was going to retire and pursue a career in the majors. The Carp filed an injunction, and he sent letters to MLB teams demanding they cease all negotiations with him. But the officials claimed that after the Nomu case, they had privately amended the player contract to give NPB teams the right to prohibit a player from signing a new contract anywhere after voluntarily retiring. Since there was no consultation from the MLB officials, they did not agree to any charges, but C-League declared that MLB would recognize Soriano as a free agent on July of 1998, and the Carp backed down, and that's how Alfonso Soriano became a Yankee for 5 years, $3.1 million. There is a lot of convoluted things that goes on. So, contrary to popular belief, the posting system now, 30 some odd years later, is a lot different because they had to fight the nail back then to get players like that. It was worse than free agency when Kurt Flood had to go through that whole thing to get out of his contract with the Cardinals. Like I said, free agency in its infancy, people hated it then. There was a guy named Andy Messersmith who wanted to get away from the Dodgers. Reggie Jackson no longer wanted to be with the A's. He ended up getting traded to Baltimore in 76. Just a lot of things have happened since the 70s and 80s. But most recently, the biggest one here was the posting fee for Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. So the posting fee is how much money they get paid. So the posting fee is based off the amount of guaranteed money in the initial contract. So 20% of the first $25 million, 17.5% of the next $25 million, and 15% of any amount above $50 million. For players signed to minor league contracts, the fee is a flat 25% of the contract's value. And the Ham Fighters ended up.
Is he frozen?
Yeah, he froze.
Yeah. Oh, well. I'm sure he'll be back. He'll be back. But I always wondered how often they used to get signed because I thought it was always the year of the Oh, you're back.
So the only five players who didn't. So the system only applies to players under contract with a Japanese team, although players who have 9 or more years of playing with the NPB are exempt. So there's only been 4 players who've ever done that. Max Suzuki, who you probably don't know about, he played 18 years in professional baseball, 6 in the majors. Michael Nakamura, he played 1 season, I think 2 seasons, with Toronto and Minnesota. Kaz Tadano played in Japan and America. And Junichi Tazawa, who played for the Red Sox and he played for the Marlins. So, but it's the way it used to be was there was a 4-day silent auction during which interested MLB teams would submit sealed bids in U.S. dollars to the commissioner's office. After 4 days had passed, the commissioner would close the bidding process and notify the posted players NPB team of the highest bid, but not who the highest bidding team was. The NPB then had 4 days to either accept or reject the non-negotiable bid amount. Quite literally, it was an auction system for players. And it got crazy at numerous points. So just think about it that way. You think it's bad now, but once they announce the posting, now the way it is, 45 days. 45 days is how long they have to sign with a team. That's the new way. That was adopted 8 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So you get 45 days to sign with a team. If you don't sign, you go back to Japan. And there's been 71 Japanese-born players. 22 have entered the league using the posting system since 1998. Excuse
Yep.
me. 28 players have used it with a range of success. Of the 28, 16 were immediately signed to major league contracts. One player drew no bids on his first posting, was signed to a major league contract on his second posting,
Oh,
and the contracts have gone from anywhere from 1.4 million to 155 million dollars. The first one was back in 1999. Ichiro was not the first one. The winner was Alejandro Diaz. He's known as Alejandro Diaz Quezada. And he was the first one to ever post from NPB to MLB. He was signed by Cincinnati for $400,001. About as Price is Right as one could get. So the most expensive one, so the cheapest one, funnily enough, was by Naoki Uesawa. November 27th, 2023,
there we go.
$6,250. That's it. That's
Dang.
not even a month's worth of. That's like 3 months' rent for a normal apartment here in America.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he ever pitched for him. He was with Tampa Bay. He pitched. Oh, actually, never mind. He pitched for the Red Sox, come to find out. He was traded to the Red Sox, and he pitched in. What did he pitch? He had 3 strikeouts and an ERA of 2.25. So yeah, no, that's how it can work. But the highest bidding ever was Yu Darvish in 2011 by the Texas Rangers. $51,703,411. That's how much the posting was. And they got to
Wow.
get to keep like half of that. That's how they pay their payroll pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And the stupid part is Roki Sasaki, the one that the Dodgers got last year. No, going to be 2 years ago now. He got a minor league contract for $1.625 million. The Dodgers got him for that cheap.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He got posted. The Dodgers got him on the cheap, and they didn't have to defer any money. That was the same offseason, I believe, that they ended up getting Yamamoto. No, that was the offseason after. That's the sad part. Because they got Yamamoto in that one. Seems like the Dodgers have had a lot of experience with this stuff. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah. They're smart.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is going to be it for this episode of the 3000 Heroes right here. Because I need to rest my voice and all that stuff. And I need to hit the hay. So without further ado, thank you very much to Joey and Jesse for helping me tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. And then hopefully I'll be feeling better by then. And thank you all for watching. Good night. And